Olá, bom dia a todos. Não falo bem português, então I'm going to switch right away to English. And just to state for a start that it's a privilege for the education program of the Aga Khan Trust for Culture to be able to cooperate with the Instituto de Construção of University of Porto, as well as the municipality of MONFORTE, because the main purpose of this education program is to share the philosophy, the principles, the methods of two flagship programs of the Aga Khan Trust, one of which is the Aga Khan Award for Architecture, which is a mechanism of recognition. And the second one is the Aga Khan Historic Cities Program, which is actually an operational mechanism. It is a series of interventions. And that's what we are going to focus on today, because we know that these kinds of pedagogical exercises, on-the-ground workshops, can be informed very usefully by the experience of the Historic Cities Program, and particularly its methodology, which we refer to as a methodology of integrated urban rehabilitation. And the interesting thing about this methodology is that although it has been practiced so far in very large cities, the focus has been on much more limited communities within those large cities. And so it's multi-scalar. And although Monforte is not a huge city in the same way that Delhi or Cairo or Lahore are, the methods do have some direct application, and they serve as a point of reference. So having given that brief introduction, I'll go right in. These are some of the photographs of projects that the Trust is now undertaking, that the Historic Cities Program is undertaking. And before I continue any further, I just thought it would be useful to introduce to you the constellation of organizations of which the Aga Khan Trust for Culture is a part. In fact, the Aga Khan Development Network, which has been created over the years since 1957 by His Highness the Aga Khan, has organizations that are for economic development. It has organizations for social development, including what is, strictly speaking, the Aga Khan Foundation. And we are not the Aga Khan Foundation, we are the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, and the main programs of the Trust for Architecture are the Award for Architecture that I've referred to, the Historic Cities Program that is the focus today, a very active music program, and the Aga Khan Museum that is located in Toronto. And as a transversal program, there is the education program. But coming back to the AKDN, this is a network that works on a very large scale, and I'm giving you just some of the key characteristics of the network. It has a very large number of programs. It has 74 nonprofit entities, 90 entities which are actually on a commercial model, and those commercial revenues are all reinvested. They are, and the employees, the number of employees across the world that work for the network is roughly 80,000. So having given you, and here's just one snapshot of various activities of the network in West Africa, and up in the left-hand corner, you see the Mosque of Djenné in Mali. That's the country in which the Historic Cities Program has operated. I will continue by just giving you one quote from the founder and CEO of this international network. And you will see how it is very much, the work of the Trust is very much community-based. And the key sentence in what the Aga Khan has said there is that we view the cultural heritage and other forms of cultural expression today as precious assets for development. It could be economic development as well as social development. And having shared that with you, I now just want to continue into a brief overview of the Historic Cities program. The mission is very clearly to do urban regeneration, and heritage conservation, but in ways that are much more than just the bricks and mortar, in ways that spur social, economic, and a broader cultural development. And there are three basic strands that form part of this approach. And I'm going to focus on the last strand, the bottom strand, which is this notion of multi-input area development. It's an approach that seeks to create a critical mass of socioeconomic initiatives that are built around and together with the core activity that is heritage conservation. So in this approach, it means that it's not just a question of conservation, but it also involves, inter alia, education and skills training. It involves health and public services, infrastructure development, sanitation, water and energy management, urban planning, open space improvements, as well as the creation of parks and gardens. And all these needs...
Just one issue. You are not presenting the PowerPoint. You didn't share the screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, let me just... I have to go back and you should have told me earlier. Well, sorry about that. So, play from start. Okay, so what I'm going to do, sorry about that, that little glitch. I've gone over some of this, so I'm just going to go very quickly. Here are the images that I wanted to share with you of the different projects. Here, I think I'm going to come back to this and spend just a bit more time, because you remember that I recalled the existence of the Aga Khan Development Network. And these three pillars of the development network, it's very much a development-focused organization, are economic development, social development, and cultural development. And the smallest in terms of budget, in terms of staff, is in fact the cultural development component. And that is the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, one of whose programs is the Historic Cities program. And that's what I'm presenting to you today. And that is, if you like, a template for conservation activity. I'm not going to dwell on these two slides because they tell you about the AKDN. I just come back to the composition. This was a slide on where there are different AKDN activities. This is the sort of inspirational message that drives the work of the trust, a very, very development-oriented, very culture and development-oriented. This is just an overview of where the trust operates. This is to just recall the mission of the Historic Cities program is to undertake urban regeneration projects in historic city centers in ways that really spur economic and social development. And here I had shared with you the three major points, and I was explaining the multi-input area development approach, which pursues all those needs that I mentioned earlier, and here are those needs, in an integrated way. And the activities and the projects interact with and reinforce each other, unlike many traditional approaches that don't do this. And the way in which the Historic Cities program creates a critical mass is directly related to the needs and potential benefits, of course, for local people and local communities. And the methodology of this approach is most very clearly illustrated by one of the projects, the Nizamuddin Basti Renewal Initiative, which I'm going to share with you through a 9-minute film at the end of my presentation that presents it much more graphically and in a much more interesting way than I could. But before I do that, I'm going to just mention the work in historic Cairo, because the work of the Historic Cities program is probably best known across the world through the work that has gone on since the 80s to restore a neighborhood in historic Cairo, in Fatimid Cairo, as a matter of fact, which is called Darb al-Ahmar. And that project has been going for many years now. And just to give you some idea of what has been done there, and I've gone on this slide to the Al-Azhar Park, which is right next to this neighborhood. So what you have had over the years is a set of restoration projects. You've had, together with those restoration projects, many social development initiatives dealing with health, with education, with livelihoods for the local people. And more recently, this park, which has been developed in a barren spot, which was a rubbish dump for the city of Cairo for many, many years, in fact, for 500 years, that the Aga Khan decided he would turn into a park, and it was a long and laborious process, to make it a much needed leisure and recreational space for the people of Cairo. Cairo is a city which has a population of almost 20 million, and one of the lowest rates of green space to the urban population in the whole world. And so the project absorbed for both Darb al-Ahmar and the park something like $50 million, and has become a real catalyst for economic development in the city of Cairo. So I'm continuing with the presentation, just another view of the park. This is one of the buildings, one of the historic buildings that has been restored and is now being used as a school and also as the headquarters for the trust's operation in historic Cairo. And just to share with you one feature which is important, I'm going to draw your attention to the column here in this chart, which talks about expenditures, but the column that has donors. Because one thing that's key as far as the Historic Cities program is concerned is that much of the funding, in fact now the majority of the funding, comes from external donors. It's not paid for by the Ismaili community. And these funds are contributed to these projects because of the quality of work that the donors see that the Trust for Culture provides. I'll turn now to India, which is the main focus for today. I'm not going to talk about all the projects. We're going to focus on New Delhi and the work that is going on around a 16th century tomb of the second Mughal emperor, which has been entirely restored by the Aga Khan Trust for Culture. But one of the reasons for which the Aga Khan decided to choose the Humayun's tomb, he was responding to an invitation of the government of India, is that right next to the tomb complex, where there are many minor tombs of nobility of the time, and up here you see also the development of a wonderful historic garden, which is called Sundar Nursery, and which is a replication, if you like, of the model that was followed in Cairo for the Al-Azhar Park. But the community in question is here. This is the Nizamuddin Basti. Basti means a poor urban neighborhood. And so what we see happening is that combined approach. And here, another slide, and this is the Sundar nursery. This is also buildings in the Sundar nursery. And here is just a panoply of the various activities. There seems to be somebody talking, but I think that's done with. So all the points that I mentioned, the conservation, the water and sanitation, the education, the early childhood development, cultural activities, urban planning, and work in health. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you, Bruno, to please share with us the video. Have I stopped sharing? I don't remember clicking on the button yet, but I guess I have.
Yes, you stopped sharing. Yes.
Okay. And just to, yeah, I'm not going to come back after the film is shown because I've taken up my time. And of course, I'll stay with you and I will be with you for the question and answer session. So please continue to the next speaker, to Anna, when the film is finished.
Basti Hazrat Nizamuddin. Home to winding narrow streets. Walls that look down on hundreds of years of history. And steps that follow where a revered saint once walked. This is the living, beating heart of Delhi, the national capital of India.
हज़रत निज़ामुद्दीन औलिया का नाम आते ही एक लोगों के जहन में एक कम्युनल हार्मनी, एक गंगा जमनी तहजीब का नाम एकदम छड़ जाता है लोगों के जहन में.
This living example of India's pluralist culture and heritage is a natural home for the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, whose focus is always the physical, social, cultural, and economic revitalization of communities in the developing world. Revitalizing the Basti achieves multiple purposes. The preservation of both tangible and intangible manifestations of the past, the catalyzing of the residents' sense of ownership, the resultant creation of springboards for development, and a direct increase in the socio-economic activities, leading to a material increase in the quality of the lives of the residents.
Conservation done over here is actually coupled with development, so it's not, it's meant to ensure that everybody has a stake in it.
To begin with, the AKTC began to work with and in the community for the conservation of several of the monuments here. Slowly but surely, the glory of several key monuments among the hundreds that dot the landscape of the Basti began to be restored. Restoring these glorious representations of the past and living history has a relatable effect on how residents living in their vicinity begin to see and feel about themselves. Slowly, they begin to appreciate the value of their 700-year-old inheritance, encased as it is in the built-up and lived Indian history and culture. For this is the birthplace of the Qawwali and the final resting place of Khusro, Ghalib, and Rahim, shining jewels in the Indian crown. Preserving the built heritage of the place has helped create interest in tourists and lovers of history. And today, residents can share the past with them, employing the training they received from the Aga Khan Trust for Culture. The program is called Saire Nizamuddin.
We have trained about 60 professionals, those who are actually working as heritage volunteers now. After preservation of all these monuments, people are really getting to know what culture they had from last 700 years, which was lost somewhere in between.
My work primarily focuses on the heritage walks that we conduct. We conduct heritage walk of Basti Hazrat Nizamuddin, of Humayun's tomb, and Abdul Rahim Khan Khan's tomb.
The direct connection between the restoration work and tangible benefits to the community is not lost on the residents. They can see how the investment in culture and heritage they inherited creates value for them in the present. As a result, they become more receptive to the new avenues for progress and social change the AKTC opens for them.
लगभग 7% महिलाएं केवल ऐसी थीं जिनके पास अपने कोई आमदनी थी, यानी कि बस्ती की 93% महिलाएं ऐसे हैं जिनके पास अपनी कोई आमदनी नहीं है। जब इनके पास आमदनी नहीं है तो जाहिर सी बात है आज़ादी भी नहीं है।
Things are different now. Even among the women coming from traditionally conservative families, there is a realization that they have a capacity to contribute to the family and the community. This increased confidence has helped the SHG set up businesses, which help them increase their incomes and helps reclaim arts that were dying out. For instance, Zaika, which resurrects Basti cooking from the days of yore, bringing it into the present day.
जायका फर्स्ट न्यूट्रिशियस स्नैक्स बनाता है, सेकंड चिकन बिरयानी, कोरमा वगैरह जो स्पेशल निजामुद्दीन स्पेशल होता है वो बनाता है.
Or Inshai Noor, where women train in the art of paper cutting called Sanji, or learn expert needlework called Zardozi. In the Sanji work the women undertake, we can see the visible echoes of motifs and patterns from the buildings restored by the AKTC.
इंशाई नूर में हमारे 100 मेंबर हैं. बहुत मज़ा आता है घर से बाहर निकलकर. थोड़ी हमारे अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस भी आ गया, तेजी भी आ गई है.
This energy, so wonderfully expressed in the words Shaheen used, best finds expression during the Apni Basti Mela, held every November, when visitors can experience the proud heritage and culture of the Basti through activities, music, food, and more.
This Mela gives the people of the Basti an opportunity to showcase their talent, to showcase their vibrant culture.
ये सिर्फ कॉन्सेप्ट यही है कि बस्ती के लोगों को, उनके लाइवलीहुड को, उनके आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट को बढ़ावा देना.
लेडीज बाहर निकली हैं, उन्होंने अपनी अपनी शॉपें लगाई हैं, उनको अच्छी इनकम हुई है. अपनी बस्ती मेला में भी बहुत लोग आए, सबने खाया और बहुत खुशी होती है उस टाइम पे.
We've got 15-20,000 people from outside coming in for a 3-day event. I think that culture has the potential to break class, religion divides like nothing else, and that's what we're trying to achieve here.